11 o'clock, and I'm going to call to order our workshop on Southfields. I see we got a full group here today. It's good seeing all these faces. I can't wait until we see each other in person again. I think we're getting close. Every day we're getting closer and closer. In fact, I almost think we could do almost like a hybrid meeting at some point where I know that some people are meeting and some people are doing Zoom. And if you feel uncomfortable about being in the meeting, you do a Zoom. We don't want to have the public in. We'll have the public in by Zoom. But I feel better when I'm with people, quite frankly. But
I'm ready.
I think you're ready. I spoke to Rob Masmiano this morning. I think he's ready. Earl waved his hand. Charlie, I know misses me. I know Charlie misses being with me.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for open meeting.
That's right. I think that we, yeah, I got you. We got you, Rob.
Yeah, I was sitting on, I punched in the numbers for tonight. So for a couple minutes, I was sitting there wondering, where is everyone? And then I realized.
Well, listen, I think that the purpose of this workshop was to discuss the Southfields PUD and to talk about what direction, where everything is, how we can coordinate this thing. I understand that the Southfields has been, and the engineering firm has been meeting with town staff on a I guess a bi-weekly basis, and there's notes and there's information of entitlements that we're looking at or I sent to the board for us all to take a look at. I think it answers a lot of the a lot of questions kind of moving forward for me, but it is very technical. This entitlement page here is not the easiest for me to understand. So Luke, can I put this kind of in your hands and talk about what we want to do here today?
Well, one thing I want to do is get some timelines set out here, and we had talked about the waivers for this residential side, and you had suggested that the possibility exists of getting all the permits at one time, and that's not practical for the town to handle. It's not even feasible for us to be able to handle several hundred permits all at one time because they expire in 6 months, and changes in the conditions, you know, the energy code or whatever could take place within a period of time before this place even gets off the ground. I'm not sure. The water tower, we have a proposal from KCI for the design of the tower and the well, and their scope of work is listed as 58 weeks. So it's over a year before they'll have the design and the site work and all the other geotechnical work that's required to go with that to be completed in order to even get bidding documents and put it out to bid and then have a contractor bid it. So we'll be into 2022 or 23 perhaps before all that's done. I'm not sure how the residential development is going to occur without that supply of water, because it won't be, that doesn't even include the infrastructure surrounding the well. In other words, the distribution system to wherever the development's going to occur. All KCI, the $190,000 that they need for the design of both the water tower and the well, that's only for on site there. That's not any infrastructure or distribution system associated with that. So I'm not sure where MRA, that's the design for Stonewall Capital, they're the design engineers, where that is. And Gene may be able to get some clarification about how that infrastructure is going to be put in place in conjunction with the completion of the design and construction of the well. Can you add anything to that, Jeannie?
You're on mute, Gene.
Just a moment. I just sent her another message.
I thought I heard a minute.
Right.
Yes. I know that we got Ray. Is that you on the line?
Yes, it is. And I was just going to interject while we were waiting for Gene, but let Gene go ahead. And then I've also got Steve Moore with me, and we can elaborate on those comments from Lewis as well, please.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Gene.
So, yesterday I received a timeline for the parcel C and parcel H, I think it is. Speaks to the improvements to State Highway and pump stations and the water tower and well. So, I would probably defer to Steve and Ray as to what their expectations are and in what order they were hoping to accomplish this. And I can tell you, you have to have your infrastructure in before you can, build your houses and get your occupancy. So, but as to the specific timeline, that's really up to the developer.
Ray, go ahead. Can you give us some
Okay.
insight on everything where you're at?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to let us come in and bring you up to speed again. So a couple of months ago, we felt it necessary to request that we have a semi-monthly or bi-weekly meeting with Jean and her staff and the town's engineers, KCI, and my engineers, and then all of the strategic partners. So when I mention the word strategic partners, they include Trammell Crow, who is doing the e-commerce industrial portion. They include DR Horton, who is the single family detached. So the home builder is DR Horton. Burkentine Properties is our multifamily residential developer. They're on the call every other week. And then Mike Brown is on the call from Sideline Properties, who's developing the sports complex. Steve Moore is also on the call, and Steve's on my team. And Steve's been in the development business. Steve actually built Bell Hill Road, just for your own edification, and reference. So Steve is more than capable of facilitating all of this with me. So about 2 months ago, we requested we start having these meetings to keep everybody in the loop and really to strategize and to make sure that we had clear paths for all of the development. So I think we started a month or so ago, and we got everybody on the phone, and we laid out some groundwork. And I personally believe that the conversations have been very, very productive, and are good natured, and it seems like it's a team effort. So I'm appreciative of that. So with that said,
Ray, there's some bad interference coming. I'm not sure if anybody else is hearing it.
Can
Somebody-
everyone go on mute other than Ray? We'll see what happens.
Sorry about that.
I don't know how to do that.
It's off now. Oh,
Yeah. Are we good? Is that better?
It's off.
Thank you.
So we started those conversations about a month ago, but now I think the best thing for me to do is to try to lay out what we envision the schedule to be. Okay. So, and if we've been deficient in forwarding the schedules to you, I will make sure, at least on a monthly basis, you get an update on the schedules. Okay. And when I say schedules, there's actually a schedule for each individual development parcel. So there'll be a schedule for the multifamily residential or apartment side. There'll be a schedule for Sideline Properties. There'll be a schedule for Trammell Crow and the industrial e-commerce. There'll be a schedule for DR Horton and the single families. We will also send you a schedule starting in about 6 months for the retail and the commercial, because that's going to happen a little bit later. That'll follow the first part or the first phase, which is the infrastructure and the moving of the dirt. Okay. So the way we envision this happening is we are working currently with State Highway, and all of those documents and all of that correspondence continues to come into the town as well as to the county. And those are ongoing conversations. Okay. There's still a conversation about the need for a traffic signal at 213. So that conversation continues. There's also a conversation with regards to the scheduling of off-site improvements. We know that there needs to be improvements, for instance, at Route 40 and 213. And we're waiting for State Highway to tell us, to dictate to us when they want those improvements made. Okay? So these are all public documents. I believe Gene has them. And it's correspondence between our team, the county, Gene, and State Highway. So again, that's an ongoing conversation, and it will continue to be. But with regards to the specific schedule and our plan, what our plan is to design the infrastructure being the main boulevard, which is the entrance off of 213, that feeds all of these strategic partners development parcels. So the main boulevard goes in, and then it feeds the commercial and the retail, and it feeds the multifamily residential, and it feeds the single family homes, and it feeds the sports complex. So that has to be designed and put into practical use first, as well as the water tower, the sewer pump station, and the infrastructure, as Lewis just described. Now, I was unaware until this call this morning that KCI is stating that it's going to be 58 weeks to design the water tower. So I'm going to instruct Steve, as soon as we get off this call, to get a meeting with KCI and with MRA and figure out why there's such a delay in that schedule. And we will report back to you in the next week. That seems to be, to me personally, to be 6 months too long, but we'll figure that out. We'll have the engineers talk about it, and we'll figure out what the delay is there. But we are currently engineering specific development parcels, and I will go through each one of them individually with you. So the multifamily residential, the Burkentine piece, the apartment piece is already gone in for preliminary plan. It's already gone to the planning commission for the preliminary plan. They were given a conditional preliminary plan approval. The engineering, the specific construction documents and engineering are taking place now. So stormwater management, erosion and sediment control, the road construction documents, all of those documents are being prepared by Burkentine now. Burkentine's plan is to have those documents finished and submitted. And Steve, I would ask you to clarify this, but I think in May, for either in April or May. So that means we would be back in front of the planning commission either in May or June for final plans for the multifamily residential.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
So that would give Burkentine the opportunity to go back in front of the planning commission, get all of the details worked out, get their approvals, and then they would then start applying for a grading permit to start moving dirt, to start preparing the site so that they can put in their infrastructure, their water lines, their sewer lines, their stormwater management. And I can get you all a construction schedule as well. We don't have that yet, but I can get you a proposed construction schedule from Burkentine. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that infrastructure work, that dirt work is probably a minimum of 6 months. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes. Yep. That's right.
Okay. So, at best case scenario, we go in, Burkentine parcel C goes in for final in May. They get approved plans in June. They start moving dirt July or August, and that runs through the end of 2021. So they wouldn't even be ready for vertical construction until the first quarter of 2022. Okay, so that's an idea of where we stand with parcel C.
Hey,
or
Ray,
excuse me. Yeah, I apologize. It's not parcel C. Parcel C is the single family. Yes, ma'am.
it's Jean.
B.
In order to record the subdivision, there has to be some understanding as to when water and sewer would be available for each of the partners in this, single family,
Sure.
multifamily, and that sort of thing. And
Yep.
the concern I have is that the health department will not sign the record plats unless we assure them that there's adequate water and sewer for the site. And I guess what I'm concerned about is the timing of the improvements versus the timing for when the developer expects to get building permits. I don't want to see any conflict there where the developer is ready and waiting and waiting and waiting on the water and sewer, and in the meantime may feel that they are losing opportunity or something. That they end up coming back on the town after.
You're right, and I think what we do is we create a developers agreement, a legal document, and it all gets laid out. So again, that reiterates my concern about 58 weeks for KCI to design a water tower. So this is where we all have to work together, and we have to, be Team Elkton here, and make sure that we're all working towards common goals. And I could not agree with you more, Gene. So I think the solution to that would be to create a developers agreement that ties right back into it. And all of these permits would be contingent on adequate facilities. And that's a legal document that gets incorporated into a developer's agreement. But I think what we do is we talk to Lisa and John Downs about that, and we figure out the best way to facilitate that. And that conversation can happen in the next week or two. But I agree with you 100%. And I wouldn't ask for that to happen without assurances that this infrastructure was being put into place.
Louis, is
I
it okay
agree
if I
with
chime
you.
in on the schedule?
Yeah, Ryan, I'm glad to see you. There was a comment made that the proposal that KCI submitted was 58 weeks for all the work to be done, including the bidding documents and things. And Mr. Jackson is concerned that that's too long a period of time. Can you explain? I know there's a lot of work, the site work, the geotechnical work, and all those types of things have to go into this. It's not just the design of the well and the tower and the architectural work. Can you explain why it would be that long a period of time?
I can. And first, I want to make a big picture point. I agree with Ray that we need to start coordinating our schedules with the developer schedule, because this design schedule that was submitted, it's conservative in nature because it includes the completion of every step prior to the next survey before geotech before design, then design before permitting. We can work with the developer schedule here. This serves to minimize risk and make it the most efficient, the way that we produced it, assuming that the timing of this water tower and well house was not the critical path. I'm hearing on this call that this is the critical path. So we can certainly work. It takes additional coordination and communication, but that's not an issue on our end. So we can certainly work with the overall project, and we can minimize some of these durations that you're seeing on the schedule. We can start geotech once only 1 week's worth of surveys done. We can start the design once we only have a little upfront information from geotech. And so we can, I agree with Ray's stance that we can squeeze this overall design duration to work with the overall project schedule. I just want to make sure that's the main point that I wanted to make. To your point, Louis, if we are doing this the traditional conservative way, and we're getting all the survey done, and then we're going out and getting all the geotech done. So the geotech doesn't have any surprises, which is why we do all the design after all the geotech's done. So the design doesn't have any surprises. Each phase builds upon the next one. But I've certainly been a part of many projects, especially these days where schedule always seems tight, which I definitely understand. These different disciplines of work can certainly overlap. So Ray, I would look forward to working with you and Steve on making sure the schedule works for both of us.
I really appreciate those comments. Thank you.
I want to emphasize here to the board the importance of geotechnical work because of not only the well, but the tower is in an area that they have to analyze that soil, its capacity to handle the load. When you put several million gallons of water, a million pounds of water on 6 legs of a tower, it demands a pretty substantial foundation. So that's the importance of the geotechnical work. You want to elaborate on that? I'm not an engineer, but I listened to enough engineering over the years to realize how important the geotechnical work is in conjunction with the design of the foundations for these structures.
Absolutely. I mean, all these steps that we're taking are certainly necessary. There's no doubt about it. I mean, think about the last conversation we had out on Red Hill Reservoir, how important geotech is for that tank, even though it's at grade, where this tank, all the water is going to be stored at a higher elevation. So yeah, it's not that all of these components will get done. It's a matter of improving communication and getting started on what we can on the design phase while some of the geotech is still being wrapped up. But we won't sacrifice any of the importance or any of the analysis or conclusions from this survey or the geotech. That's a really good point, Louis.
One of the other points I want to make here is Ligie had, or perhaps both of you have emphasized the need for this tower's elevation to be at the 170-foot overflow, I guess, and in the town zone. And in order to do that, we'll have to put a pressure reducing valve on, I think Delaware Avenue was their suggestion there. So this is off-site work that'll have to be done in conjunction with that design to keep it in the Elkton town zone. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a really good point as well, and it's a topic I was hoping was going to come up. This work, we're taking a comprehensive approach with this work, which serves the town well, and that this isn't just a water tower and a well design. Ligie and I have been working on your water system for decades now, and we understand that with this water tower and this part of the water system being on the town hall pressure zone, you're going to save a lot of construction costs up front, but you're also going to help with ongoing maintenance. Just for a quick clarification or an example, I should say, moving this to the town hall zone, which does include some upfront work with the pressure zone, but it also allows you to have a much shorter water tower, which is advantageous for everyone involved, upfront construction and also maintenance. But you also eliminate the need for reducing pressure into individual homes and individual businesses that will be over 80 psi, which plumbing code dictates you have to have pressure reducers there. So in terms of lowering the pressure by lowering the water tower is a win-win, both on the high pressure side and the low pressure side. But it does take, we're basically refashioning the town's pressure zones in this area. And there's a lot that goes into it. But Ligie and I have looked at it and we feel it's the right approach. And we've been working closely with the town DPW on this one. We're going out and taking pressure tests and confirming all of our numbers before we follow up with the design on it.
Ryan, I want to make another point. I'm making a lot of points here, but the constructability issue here, when you build a well and a tower, I think the initial thought here was to build a tower first because it's a relatively small parcel. It's only 1.25 acres or something. And of course, we had to make concessions for the sideline sports fields. And in order to do that, you're going to have the manufacturer or the contractor for the manufacturer build a tower first, because it's behind, theoretically, behind or north of the well assembly, at least for the initial construction of it. And so I think there has to be some serious coordination between the contractors involved in the well and the tower too. And you don't have a big laydown area there for big components. I was involved in the construction of the Walker Hill Tower. And let me tell you, a lot of big pieces of steel come in there and they got to be put someplace. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to be constructed at this point, but I'm not a structural engineer or anything. So I just know from experience that it takes a space to build something that big.
It does, and it's been a topic of conversation. I mean, we've already had conversations about the right way to sequence construction, even the right way to bid this project. There's pluses and minuses towards bidding things together, bidding the separate and laydown area, and the two contractors coordinating and sharing the same footprint is a definite topic that comes up. We haven't done a deep dive into the specifics of the construction sequencing yet. We would normally tackle that during the design phase, but I agree with you, Louis. It's a big consideration looking at constructability for these two projects. The more that they can be constructed simultaneous, the better for the overall project schedule. So we'll make that a priority after public safety, of course.
Way back when, I had hoped we'd get about 4 or 5 acres of land there and we'd have plenty of room. But
right.
We're kind of shuffled into a pretty small area there. And I can tell you, an acre and a half isn't much space for a well that can pump up to 720,000 gallons a day, MMU, of course, and a 600,000 gallon tank elevated. So, and then you got all the piping and everything involved there too. So that's a lot of construction activity in a relatively small space.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the nice part though is that we're not blazing a new trail. I mean, there's one of 2 water tower contractors, manufacturers that are going to win this project, and both of them have put water towers in a much tighter spot than this. So
I can imagine. Yeah.
It's the challenge is there, but they've been put in tighter spots before, but I agree. It's definitely a consideration. It's definitely something that goes into not only our design, but also our sequence of construction, our LOD for each project, the limit of disturbance for each project, how we lay them out. We can't leave it up to chance that they're not going to, potentially run out of room or get in each other's way out there. So it is a big part of our design.
Thank you.
And Louis, this is Steve Ward. Go ahead, Ray. I know you're going to say the same thing.
I would just add that the water tower is going in long before the Sideline Properties project's going to be built, so you can use any space you need there. So we'll communicate and we'll coordinate with KCI. There's not going to be an issue with space.
Bless you. Because if we don't have a conflict with sidelines here, that even for a temporary laydown area, we're in a lot better shape.
Yeah, we'll make sure that there's assurances of that, and the construction sequences is KCI just laid out. We'll dictate that, and we'll ensure that there's no conflicts here, and that there's adequate space. And Steve will make sure we coordinate with the contractors. And the way I envision it, that would be a mass graded space that you can work within. So I think we'll have more than adequate room, and we'll be able to facilitate this. So we'll make sure that there's comfort level with everybody here.
Thank you. That's why we're a team.
That's right. So do you want me to keep going with schedule? Just to keep the process going?
Yeah, Ray, continue with the process, if you would.
Yep. And I was Aaron in that I was describing parcel C, and it was really parcel D. So parcel D is the multifamily residential parcel. So going to parcel C, which is the single family homes, which is DR Horton, and I believe MRA sent over a schedule to Gene, and the board might have that as well. But if not, I'll make sure we get that over to you. But DR Horton is scheduling now to go in front of the board, I believe in April, the Planning Commission in April for their preliminary plan. So that will lay out, what the outline of the neighborhood's going to look like. And that'll be the preliminary site plan for the single family detached. Realistically, they've got to make changes to that. There's going to be requests and changes made. That process will go through the summer. And then DR Horton most likely will come back into the Planning Commission in the fall of 2021 with final plans for site development. And then they'll start grading and putting in their infrastructure as I described with Burkentine, again, probably towards the end of 2021. So realistically, you'd be looking at construction of single family homes first or second quarter of 2022, kind of in parallel with the construction of the multifamily residential. They both touch each other. There's going to be some sharing, I'm sure, of dirt. There's cut and fill analysis that'll be done. So dirt will be moved back and forth during the mass grading process. So it's efficient to have both of those development parcels being the infrastructure being done simultaneously. Mike Brown Sideline Properties, which is on the other side of the boulevard of the multifamily and the single family detached. It's on the Frenchtown Road side. He too has already been in front of the Planning Commission. He has preliminary plans. They're still doing some geotech work on his site. So they're not done with, I should say they're still working on stormwater management concept plans, and they're still working on infrastructure designs. So I think realistically, Mike will go back in front of the Planning Commission for final approval in this summer. So Mike too will be ready to start grading and doing his earthwork and infrastructure work this fall, the fall of 2021, which again will run into 2022. So that gives you an idea of the multifamily residential, the single family detached, and the sports complex. Again, the retail and the commercial, a quick update on that. We have been in conversations with a medical office developer, whom I'm actually working with on 2 other sites that I'm developing right now. They're out of Pensacola, Florida. They're a national company, and they're looking to team with a regional medical provider, similar to a University of Maryland or a MedStar. And the idea is on the Redner side of the retail or commercial, to do a medical office building, primarily a emergency type care on the first floor. Second and third floors would be ancillary professional doctors' offices, somewhat sports related. It looks like not necessarily, but there will be, I believe there'll be a slight focus on sports-related medical offices in that building. We've had numerous conversations, and we actually have letters of intent from 3 regional convenience store gas station operators, which will be on the main boulevard, right on 213 and the main boulevard. And that'll be a convenience gas station. It'll be a Sheetz or a Wawa, Royal Farms type facility. We've had numerous conversations with hotel operators, 2 of which are actually negotiating with us right now. That site is in the front of the sports park. It is right on 213, immediately adjacent to the boulevard as well. So those conversations are going well. In reality, the hotel will probably be 6 months to a year behind everything else, as well as the restaurants that we're proposing. The restaurants and the hotel will come in about a year after the vertical construction starts on the apartments and the homes. And that's typical. The retail typically follows the residential units. So that's kind of a rough idea of what the staging or the planning is. But I will make sure that going forward on a monthly basis, we send to you all, to you, Rob, and to the commissioners, updated schedules for each individual development parcel. So you have a clear path to see what our schedules look like. I will also update for you where we stand with the potential partners on the retail, because that's kind of a moving target. Nothing's really set in stone yet there. We have Mike Brown at Sideline Properties. We have D.R. Horton, the largest home builder in the country, doing the single family homes, and we have Burkentine doing the apartments. But as the retail continues to evolve, I'll make sure that you all are kept abreast of those updates as well. So that's kind of what's happening on the west side of 213. The east side of 213, which is parcel H, that is the second phase of the single family detached. So they will be single family homes over there. That's D.R. Horton as well. That engineering is going to be about 9 months behind parcel C. So that will be developed probably about 18 months to 2 years behind everything on the west side of 213. So that's the second phase of the development of Southfields. And all of these projections and all of these plans have been shared with State Highway, just so you all know. So that's why State Highway is continuing to work with us with regards to the phasing of the improvements. So as certain thresholds are met, certain improvements have to be made beforehand. And all of that is being coordinated, again, with State Highway, with the county, and with Gene's office. So that conversation continues. The last thing I need to update you on is the second phase of Southfields, or the second PUD process of Southfields. That is parcels what we have referred to as A and B and C1. They're in the critical area. So we've had to request growth allocation acres, both from the town as well as through the county. And until we realize that, we cannot start processing that part of the PUD. That parcel B is planned for a condo, a higher end condo type project, or multifamily project, probably 4 or 5 or 6 story building, elevator building. That's what's proposed in B. And parcel A, I have had conversations with Gene in the past, and with Mayor Alt in the past about doing a public-private partnership on parcel A. And what I've suggested is potentially donating the land to the town, creating a publicly accessible park area, with what I would call recreational boat launch, kayaks, canoes, things of that nature, with some pavilion space, some picnic space, and potentially some ancillary retail, but not necessarily. So nothing is definitive there. It's an open slate. And that's something that I'm excited about and encouraged to talk to you about. But again, you know, it's probably 18 months to 2 years down the road. So there's plenty of time to plan for that. But I look forward to having an open dialogue and listening to you all and soliciting your ideas and your thoughts and encouraging, you know, truly a public-private partnership there. So that's kind of where we are. What I neglected to say is that parcel I, the industrial space, the e-commerce space, Trammell Crow has secured the subdivision. They are working towards grading plans and grading permits. And I foresee them starting their earthwork in the next month or so. And then they will move, once they get their infrastructure in, they will move to a vertical construction for the first building. They're going to be doing their project in phases. There's building 1, building 2, and building 3. They'll start on building 1, and as they secure a tenant for building 1, they will immediately start processing building 2. So that industrial component, e-commerce component is underway, and they'll be moving dirt there within the next month or so. So that's kind of a brief recapitulation and idea of where we are and schedule, and more than happy to answer any questions you all have.
Ray?
Yes, ma'am.
Ray, it's Jean. Can you talk to about the senior apartments on Frenchtown?
Yes. Yep. So not on Frenchtown, you mean off of Whitehall?
Sorry, Whitehall.
Yep. So I apologize. That's what we're calling D1, which is a separate parcel. So that's proposed to be 200 senior apartments. We have had interest from and I'm going to share this somewhat in confidence, please. You know, I'm not really supposed to be advertising this, but we're in conversation.
Well, I want to stop you because it is a open workshop, Ray. So if there's
okay, all right.
So be careful of what you say.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. We're in conversations with a regional medical provider, and that medical provider that is interested in working with us on that medical office building I made reference to is interested potentially in doing a rehabilitation center in that senior housing area. And what I mean by that is that people that are being discharged from the hospital that got a knee operation, for instance, and need to go to a rehabilitation center for a week or two prior to going home. That's what they're proposing on that facility. So it would be a combination of long-term senior care as well as short-term senior care. Nothing definitive. It's in its infancy stages right now, the conversations, but there's a lot of potential there. So I do not have right now, Gene, a senior developer for senior housing there, other than what I just discussed. So that senior product realistically won't be coming in to the Planning Commission and back in front of you all for discussions for probably 6 months or so.
Thank you, Ray. I do have a question.
Sure.
And I'm actually, just in case the town of Elkton needs to or wants to do another interconnect with our partners from the Delaware line, Artesian Water, it appears that we could come across, would you be happy to enter into, if we needed, some type of agreement for easements along your properties all the way down through and into the water tower if needed?
Yes. I'd explore that with the engineers, but I'm sure it would be a non-issue.
Okay, very good. As we look at these things, why we're moving dirt, if the town of Elkton ever thinks or believes that we would, and I'm going to ask Ouija and Ryan about this, if you ever think that we're going to need this, now's the time to do it, because we could put that infrastructure in. We've got the easements in place, or we can get the easements in place, and we can take that water line all the way to basically the water on Frenchtown, all the way down to the water if we needed to, based upon who the property owners are. It's going to be a little bit more difficult once we have ball fields in place. And if we have to go along Frenchtown Road and get the easements from the county and the state, it's a lot easier, I think, going across private property, which we could right now. Just a quick comment. I don't know if we'd ever need it, if we'd ever want to close the loop per se, but I think that if it's something that we want to do, we could put the infrastructure in, or at least bury a water line. And I don't think the cost would be all that great. Thanks, Ray. Does
Yep,
anyone
absolutely.
Does anyone have questions for Ray specifically about, because we invited him on to give us an update on how this construction is going. And actually, it did me a world of good also, because I was probably 6 months ahead of everything that you were saying. And it was very, very important to understand about the infrastructure, how it would be going in. And I'll ask some specific questions of I guess our engineering firm, and maybe even Steve Moore and Dan. I see we got Dan Hanley on here also. Is our intent to when we're connecting to the tower for the water, but we also are going to be bringing water from the Redner side in, I'm assuming. How quickly can we have that connection? Can anyone answer that? We'll be ready, won't we? I mean, if we don't think we're going to be ready, now's the time that we need to know, so that we can put some priority to this. But we will have water and sewer when they're ready, correct?
I don't know. That'd be a question for MRA, Ray's engineer. I don't know what they're doing there.
We actually sent a schedule, Rob. It's in that schedule that MRA that I forwarded to you, that hopefully you sent over to the board.
I did.
Yep. So it's clearly defined. I think, I'm incredibly appreciative to hear Ryan, his comments, and KCI's comments. We're going to work through this together. That's what's going to happen. And what typically will happen is the infrastructure will be going, we will be facilitating the infrastructure on the Southfields property as the water tower is being built. It actually happens in conjunction with one another. So the infrastructure for the single family detached, and the infrastructure for the multifamily, and the infrastructure for the retail and commercial, that's all going to be laid, and that work's going to be done. Now it'll be stubbed up, but it'll be for future use. It'll be in the ground as the water tower is being constructed, as the well and the water tower are being connected to one another. So it all happens almost simultaneously. And that's not uncommon. I mean, that's just the normal course of a development of this nature. So, but there's improvements to the sewer in Whitehall Road that I'm making, that's outlined in the MRA time schedule. So, there's some offsite improvements that have to be made that I'm facilitating, that are all incorporated into this schedule that MRA has laid out, and they're already working on. So they'll continue to work in conjunction with KCI. And it's a process, and you have to do it. You have to do it, the right way. And I think we have the right team to, with Marsh Ritchie and with KCI working in conjunction with each other. I think we've got a great team here.
Ray?
Yes, ma'am.
Gene Minner, I wasn't aware of a change in the plan from the senior housing to the medical use, the rehab use.
There isn't a proposed plan yet. That's why I said there is a conversation. There is no, it's not definitive. It's not even, I'm not prepared to have that conversation.
Okay,
That's
because
what I would, yeah.
you've got to watch the numbers. There's a required
ma'am.
minimum number of desirable development that where we wanted single family and senior housing.
Yep.
There's a minimum number of those in order to get the rest of the multifamily.
That's right. We're fully aware of that. Yep.
And I need to talk to you about the when the time comes, talk to you about the critical area portion of
Okay.
the site. You need to take another look at the PUD language for that small PUD.
Okay.
It's so we can discuss that offline.
Sure.
And Ray, this is Lisa Blackson.
Hi, Lisa.
How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
I just wanted to mention, and maybe this is something that the board wants to consider. There are presently no medical uses that are permitted in a PUD. And
Okay.
I heard you discussing about the maybe emergent care center and then some doctor's offices. So if that's something that the board wants to consider, we would have to have some amendments made to the permissible use table in order to do that.
Okay.
Well, listen, I jump right in real quickly. Does anyone on the board have any issues if there was a medical use on a PUD? If not, then we probably should move forward with making sure that that language is in place, because I feel pretty comfortable to say that there will be some type of medical facility. And I don't want this to hold up a part of the project when we're here discussing it here at the first time. So if there's no issues with it from the board standpoint, then I would say let's move forward with getting that language proposed so it doesn't hold up anything.
Yeah, not for me. I actually think it would be an asset to the whole project.
Thank you, Rob.
I also concur with that, based on the amount of sports activities that go on throughout the weekends. So I agree with that.
Dean will have to draft an ordinance that amends the permissible use schedule for those uses in a PUD.
Thank you.
If Gene and I can work on that. I mean, with the PUD, obviously, this is not specific to this project. And with a PUD, it doesn't go based on the underlying zoning. So we just want to make sure it's probably I would probably recommend doing a special exception with conditions to make sure there's a certain lot requirement and everything, so that not only in this place, but in other PUDs that may arise, it's in an appropriate place and not in the middle of a residential area.
Okay, permissible uses schedule change with special exceptions with conditions. That's what you're recommending?
I think so. And I think Dean and I can probably work on the language for that and probably bring in Chip as well.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Does anyone from the board have any specific questions for Stonewall Development?
I think the report that he gave was very good. As a visionary, I know that you're going to have a population of seniors on the properties that you just mentioned. But going forward, what age group would you look forward to seeing and being predominant basically throughout the areas you mentioned? And I'm just thinking in terms of the public schools and other things related to that.
That's a great question. I think that
because each when you build, you always have a target group, and you obviously seniors are always part of everybody's target group. But what do you vision? I appreciate that.
Yep, that's a great question, Charles. I would say that we believe, and history has shown that the creation of the e-commerce and the industrial side is going to provide a significant number of jobs, and those jobs are going to dictate, to a certain extent, the type of housing that we build. I can tell you that D.R. Horton is targeting a price point of $275,000 to $350,000. I think those are typically dual income families with children, to answer your question. Now the apartments, I will tell you that there is a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. So, there will be, and those apartments are also elevator type buildings. So, there will be a senior component in that multifamily residential as well. But you're right. Your question is a great question. There will be families that are moving into Southfields with children, no question about it. And we are targeting that. We would be deficient if we weren't. And I think a lot of it has to do with the job creation that's going to happen, with what we feel the income levels are through that job creation, as well as the existing market. So I did share, I was fortunate enough to be able to meet with the superintendent of schools probably about a year or so ago, and we had this exact same conversation. And they use a different formula, with regards to estimating what the student population growth will be. But we provided to the superintendent, again, probably a year or so ago, what our product mix was, where we thought we were going and how we were getting there. Exactly the same line of questions you just had, Charles.
Okay, thank you. And oftentimes the millennials are changing the world. That's one reason why I also bring that up, because sometimes we have to forward them in their ways and finances and everything else.
And they're the market, as crazy as it sounds, but the millennials are renters. Yes, they absolutely are renters. Yes. Yep. So we feel that we are going to be attracting a lot of millennials in the multifamily residential side.
That's true.
But
could I ask a question, Ray?
Sure.
The mayor and commissioners passed resolutions authorizing a special taxing district for the residential development, and also with the issuance of bonds. When does that bond issuance, what's the projection on when that occurs? Because you'll need money in order to build all this infrastructure, unless it's a reimbursement type of thing. I'm not familiar how would that work, because we've never had a special taxing district. But the theory is that there's going to be a bond issuance to subsidize the development and infrastructure for this project.
So I want to schedule the bond issuance, and the timing of that should correspond with the start of actual dirt moving. That would be a perfect world. What we're doing is and Steve can elaborate as well, because he's working with me hand in hand here. We are creating the documents now. So the attorneys are creating the documents. All of the due diligence is being submitted. So realistically in March, we should have all of the documents finished for review for the underwriters, as well as the due diligence. Technically, we could go to the market for the bond offering as early as April or May. But I think realistically, we will be shooting probably for June or July. And the reason for that is, Lewis, is because as soon as those bonds are issued, I start paying interest on that.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So, yep. So it doesn't make sense for me to do the bond offering and then sit on those funds for a year, because I'm paying interest on that. So what I want to try to do is coordinate the efforts. So what we're doing is we're paying the engineering now, and we're processing the engineering now in anticipation of a June or July bond offering, so that you know, when the water tower is ready to be constructed, we can finance that. When the dirt is ready to be moved and the infrastructure is ready to be put in, we can finance that. So we are monitoring that, and we are you very shortly will be looped back into the conversation, simply because all of these documents will come back in front of you for review. So Kimberly Min will be re-engaged probably, I would say, in March. Steve, is that a correct statement?
Sorry, I was on mute.
I don't know.
No, that's right.
But yep.
The one of the interesting documents I assume you're working on is the indenture agreement. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yes.
That's the War and Peace version of all the documents.
Yes.
So I was going to give Cliff Notes given to me about it, because it's a rather extensive document. So I'm not sure how long it'll take to be reviewed by council. It's a pretty serious commitment on the town's part.
Yeah, there's going to be a month or two lag time at least. There will be plenty of time for review. Again, the physical work for this job will be, you know, late summer. So there's ample time to facilitate all this review.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Ray, I did have another question for you. If, without getting into any detail, but it's very important for us as a town to understand what our possible water and sewer needs are going to be for this project and your partners to the east of us. And I know that Trammell Crow probably doesn't know who their users are at this point, but we certainly know that there's been an interested customer in coming to Elkton that could use a lot of water. So could you tell us, well, I've got the engineering firm on here as well as the staff. Do you have a gut feeling? Is that a 10%, 20%, 50% chance, or do you even know?
You mean that user?
Yes.
I'd say it's 50-50. That's what I would say. But I think a lot of it is going to be dictated by you all, whether or not you all want them in Elkton.
Okay.
I think that you all can help, you know, create that opportunity, or decide that that's not an opportunity that you want. I think that there's an opportunity to create a profit center from the water side, if that's what you all decide to do. But if you decide it's a tenant in a company that the town of Elkton doesn't want, then I think that decision will lay, you know, with Lewis and the commissioners and you and you know, DPW.
Very good.
But if it's something that you want, I think that, you know, they keep coming back, and you know, from what I understand, and I'm not fully engaged in that conversation. I'm on the peripheral here, but I will say that Niagara keeps, Artesian keeps pursuing it. So, you know, I think that there's an opportunity if you guys want to pursue it.
Thank you for that comment. So, you know, why I got Ryan and Ouija on here, I was reviewing Ouija's email to the board one of the comments that you have stated was for us to take a look at our existing wells and see if what we can do as far as our capacity goes. And I think that I don't want to speak for the board because they're all on here, but I think that we've all felt that if we could be self-sufficient on any of these projects, we want to be self-sufficient. I mean, that's priority one. And if we needed to, I don't want to turn. I'm the type of guy that doesn't want to turn away any possible new potential customer that could bring a lot of value to our residents from quite frankly, from a tax base, from a user base on water and sewer, and anything that we can do to get our capacities up. I believe that we should be researching those wholeheartedly right now to make sure that we have that. By your email, we feel extremely comfortable that with this new well in place, that we're going to be able to satisfy the Southfield side. But when we get into the e-commerce side, if we had a big fish in play, it could be questionable on our system. And but I think that we'd like to know what our possible capacities can be. I feel that way. I'd like to ask Earl, Charlie, Gene, and Rob, do you feel the same way? I mean, do you feel like we need to know what our capacities are? And quite frankly, we almost need to be at our capacities whenever we can, because we're giving our residents the best bang for their buck.
Right.
If we're at capacity. Am I correct in saying that, Ryan and Luigi? Help me understand. We've got a water plant that is performing at, I'm going to shoot off my hip here, maybe at 60%, and a wastewater treatment plant that I think we still have 1 million gallons in capacity left. Don't we give our residents more bang for the buck when we're closer to 80 or 85% or even at 100% of capacity? Someone help me understand that, because I don't really understand it, but I think I do. Ryan,
I'll make a comment and then Ryan can jump in, but our capacity is already known. And the reason it's known is because the Maryland Department of the Environment issues permits to our wells, and all those permits have limits. Just like the limit for well number 4 is 500,000 gallons a day max, except for a month of maximum use, which is 720, and that's only a short-term use. Well number 3, well number 2R and 1R, they're only 100,000 gallons a day. 5's 100,000 gallons a day. And then 3, I think they're close to 500. I'm not sure. That's it. But that's the limits under which we can produce water based on those permits. And those permits, those limits were established because you have to deal with the aquifer in which they draw water. We share the same, I think it's the Potomac aquifer that we share with Artesian. So they're actually drawing out of the same amount of groundwater that we are. So when they draw more out, that could affect us. If we draw more out, it affects them. But there's a limit to how much water you can draw out of the ground before you start having reduction of the water in the ground itself. Annually, the Maryland Department, I'm trying to think, the geotechnical, what's the name? It's the survey people come up and check well limits annually to see if there's a reduction in the level of groundwater. And so far, it's been pretty stable, I believe. I don't know if Ryan or Ligi looks at that analysis or not. But that's basically what we can do. The only thing that we have out there that we could take water from is the Artesian interconnect at Red Hill, which we can go to 1.5 million with them. But I'm not sure the hydraulics involved, because you can, if you draw a lot of water out, you only have lines, water lines in your distribution system that can actually physically handle so much water. That's the hydraulics of those lines. So the fact that you could bring 10 million gallons from one source, you may not have a distribution system that would even handle that capacity. So I think Ligi or Ryan or the KCI would have to do a serious analysis if they haven't already done it to determine that. So that's one of the issues we have.
Brian, it's on you.
So,
Tell us something.
yeah, let me just follow up with Lewis's point. So let me explain it probably maybe a slightly different way than you may have heard it before, because it could be a complicated topic. There are basically two reasons why MDE limits the physical amount of water you can pull from any given well. One, Lewis touched on it exactly. It's based off the hydraulic capacity of that aquifer and how pulling water from that well impacts that aquifer. It's called a cone of influence, where you can lower the elevation of that aquifer so folks around you, if there's nearby wells, suffer. There's a second reason why MDE limits the flows on any appropriation permit, and that's what they consider to be the town's need for water. For example, if you had a well that could produce 500 gallons a minute, but you're telling them that your town's growing at a rate so that you only need 100 gallons a minute, they're only going to permit you for 100 gallons a minute, even though you could physically pull 500 gallons a minute out of that well. They base it off need and hydraulic capacity as it relates to the aquifer. So my view, and I know this is a big picture view, but my view would be, if the water can physically be pulled from the aquifer, and as Lewis mentioned, it's the same aquifer. If Artesian serves the project, they're pulling water from the same well that Elkton will be serving off of, either with an existing or a new well. So you'd almost have to make the assumption, it would have to be a given, that water can be pulled hydraulically to serve this new facility. Then it's a matter of, who's going to get MDE's green light in terms of, okay, this is your customer, so this is your need to serve these X amount of gallons a day. And so I don't know that the MDE permitting needs to be an issue for the town here. My experience is that with MDE, if you show them, hey, I have new homes coming in, or I have new businesses coming in, I need this extra flow. In my experience, they've been understanding of that. And if the amount of water needed for this specific project we're talking about can be pulled from the Potomac aquifer, then I'm talking physically, it could be the town that does it. It's a large investment, because I think we're probably talking about looking at new potential well sites. Ideally one right where the proposed project would be. I don't think there's enough, and Lisa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, off the top of my head, I don't think there's enough excess hydraulic capacity in the town's existing wells to meet this large flow that we're talking about. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say the flow number or not, so that's why I'm beating around the bush. And so it would include investigating new wells. And again, we to answer your question, Liz, we haven't analyzed much further than that up to now. We certainly can. We just haven't had the conversation with the town, or have been authorized to do that yet.
One of the things
Ryan,
I want to interject here. One thing the board probably does not know is that when we did the exploration for water on the Southfields property, actually it was Bruce Grace Hill Development Company property at the time, there was 3 wells that were constructed, 3 6-inch wells, well 1, 2, and 3. And well 1 was a non-starter. It couldn't get much water out of it. So we went to 2, and that's the one close to Fringetown Road, which is still used as a monitoring well. And then 3 across over towards Whitehall Road area. And that well still wasn't as promising as the number 2 was. So what we did, we put a 10-inch well in next to the 6-inch well in order to run that long-term or 48-hour test or whatever it was for water. But when we did that, it affected 3 wells on or surrounding property, your cone of influence that you mentioned. did have an effect when we ran that well test. And we had to replace 2 pumps, and we had to replace 1 well entirely during that test. So the permit that's issued by MDE for that well number 4 includes many provisions that if we draw that down and affect other wells, we'll have to either replace those wells or provide them with water as a condition of that permit. So that's a complicated permit. It's not just as cut and dry as you can draw as much water as you want, up to 500,000 or 720 gallons in an MMU. There's a lot more involved in monitoring that operation of that well over a period of time. Even though the demand will not be that great initially, it'll build in time.
The other thing you want to keep in mind is that there are projects in the pipeline, in the development pipeline, and now granted they've been a little dormant since the 2008 economic impacts that we had, but you still have properties that have either recorded plats or preliminary plats on them for residential houses, and there's also undeveloped land in the town that could be developed. On 213 we have a commercial industrial site of like 60 acres that could come in with something that we would really like to accommodate. So you kind of want to keep an eye out for future development within the corporate limits and even in our growth areas too.
Very good. Listen, I love these conversations. These are great conversations that I think help educate us all moving forward. I think it's been, this has been a great workshop. It has certainly filled in a few of the spots that I have that I needed some questions with. There was a couple questions that I still didn't get answered from staff that maybe I can get answered within the next week or so that when we're doing these calculations, hopefully I'll have a little bit better understanding. I would really, I did a little bit of math work myself, but I would like to know what the finished cost per gallon for water is for the town of Elkton, and what is the finished cost per wastewater by the gallon by the town. These are important numbers for us that if we go out and try to work with this big fish, these are the numbers that we certainly do need to know. And I don't know if we need assistance getting that through KCI or Infomark, whoever we need to, but those are absolutely numbers we need to know, even for budgeting purposes. We may already have them. I did a quick number on them, and I'm not sure if my numbers are correct. The other item that I needed, would like to get some information on, because this was part of our topic of conversation, is I received, and the board received, a breakdown of the major facility fees for like the last 10 years that the town of Elkton has received. I still would like to see that broken down by residential and by commercial, because as we know, I think that most of that number that was shown to us has all been commercial. And that was the money that we're using to help offset the cost of the plant, the wastewater treatment plant. So these are a couple things that I need, and I think the board would like to need them, because I'm going to come back to the board, and I really, during what's kind of started this conversation is whether or not we should or should not continue to waive major facility fees. And I know we've gone around a roundabout way about this. And, I know that this project wouldn't have happened if I didn't shake and meet with Ray Jackson. It's been close to 2 years ago, and there's some commitments that I made on behalf of the town, which I probably shouldn't have done, but at the time that I did it. And I want us all to understand what we can throw out, what the actual cost is to us, but we also need to know what that true cost is that we're doing. So that's the reason why I need that information. Does anyone from the board have any questions or comments?
Rob, I just want to say, you mentioned that you made a comment and a kind of a manly decision with Ray, but as I can say, speak for the board myself, you was open and straight forward with what you were looking to bring this project on board. And one of the main reasons why we spoke up and said we would waive the fees for the hookup fees was to bring this project into the town. So I can say it was nothing that you done on your own. We as a board, I think, had your back on this decision. So up until now, I didn't think it was an issue, but I'm just letting let you know that, I'm still behind you 100% with this.
Thank you. Oh,
I have one
yeah, go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
It's just a curiosity question that I thought Charles brought up the senior housing earlier. I was wondering, in the entire project, and if it's already been discussed, forgive me, but in this entire project, is there planned daycare within the Southfields?
Is there what?
There is planned daycare, and the answer to the question is yes, there is planned daycare.
Yeah, everything else we got, there would have to be that.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
daycare that's planned. I've actually spoken to the lady that operates the very first Kitty Academy, and I've had conversations with her about expanding her facility. And yes, to answer your question, there is daycare potentially planned.
Very good, thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, Gene.
I thought this meeting was to discuss whether or not we're able to waive major facility fees. Or are we still in the gathering information mode here? I'm confused.
Well, I've certainly gathered up all the information that I need to make that decision. I'm trying to gather up as more information for the board so that they can so you guys can make a decision based upon this. As I stated at the meeting the other night, when this project, that vacant land, let me start off by saying, the vacant land of the Crouchy Farm in Southfields came in front of the town of Elkton prior to me being on board, but it was going to be a proposed development of 4,000 single family townhouse community that would gather all of what we know as Southfields today. It was a project when I got elected that people were telling me they did not want. I went out and I did everything that I could. I really felt that building the largest indoor-outdoor recreation facility in North America was the winner. Quite frankly, that was not going to happen because there needed to be that work, live, play element that had to touch these PUDs. And so for 6 years, I got a Rolodex full of business cards of people that I was pitching this proposal to. And in that proposal, I know that I had the support of the board to make some gestures of trying to bring this in. And I kept everyone in the loop as we were going along. Literally at the last time that I was going to pitch this proposal is when I met with Stonewall Development. And at that 24th hour, I said, of course you can have your residential hookups for free because we already were in a waiver and we were giving out hookups for free for the town of Elkton. Little did I put the pieces together, and that's why this has been important to me, is that these construction timelines will probably be outside of our waiver. So I made a commitment to Stonewall to get them here into the town of Elkton, and with the residential waivers to allow them to have those. And the construction line is going to be outside of our waiver period. I strongly believe, and I know that I probably have enough support on the board. In fact, I feel pretty comfortable to say we got enough support on the board to give the waiver for the DR Horton portion of the waiver fees. And but I'm trying to gain enough information to where everyone feels comfortable to at least be able to say, yes, okay, I agree with you, Mayor. We're going to do it for the DR Horton section and let's move on. Because it is going to fall outside the window. And as I stated to everyone on an email, looking at this, we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. By us waiving hookup fees for this period of time, we have really filled in a lot of the infield lots throughout the town. Forget Southfields for a minute. Look what we did over at Walnut Hill. Look what we've done up at Baker's Hill. Look what we finished up at South Stream. These are important things that may not mean anything to us as individuals, but that person living on that street that can finally get that final course of pavement down in front of their house, that means a lot to them. And that was the whole message here. And I will call it up for a vote tonight. I'm going to ask for the board's support to get this letter out to them tonight. And if you have any questions in regards to hookup fees, what it will mean to the project for Stonewall, he's here. I would recommend.
I didn't have any questions for that. I thought it was a matter of getting some feedback from all the department heads on their recommendation and coming up with a recommendation from them based on the numbers and the future projections and future needs. You know, I mean, we're talking about I agree with you 100% that we need to be self-sufficient, or ideally would be self-sufficient from Artesian in providing water to this entire project and for future development that Jeannie has talked about. But the maintenance or current cost of the possibility of needing new wells, capacity improvement, all those things are paid for with major facility fees. If I feel as though we're covered, we're good with what's coming in, what you've brought in so far, and you know, where we're going to be at the end of this, I'm all for it. I just thought we were going to get a little bit more definitive information from everyone on what they recommended.
Someone made a statement last time that we weren't at that at that position where we could go ahead and waive that, and that's what kind of brought up a red flag. I don't know who, but someone made a statement that says we're not even at that point yet. So if anybody can chime in and answer for that, then I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that is the reason why we having this workshop, as I recall, because we talked about the major facility fees. There were some hurdles that needed to be crossed, and because of the hurdles and the obstacles, this is the reason why we're having a meeting. And I'm not putting him on the spot, but I think Chip came up with a question that really threw us all back somewhat. And so this is the reason, one of the reasons why we're back here. And I wasn't going to put Chip on the spot, neither now or what have you, but I was going to ask him if some of these hurdles had been crossed that he brought up before.
I believe some of the timeline has changed. If we're going to be getting water from Redner's side, that's not something I was aware of. I was concerned that the water was coming strictly from well number 4 and the water tower, which I would assume are going to be a couple years at least in construction, especially if we're looking at issuing building permits in the first quarter of 22. That timeline just didn't work. But if the ability to get water from the shopping center there is if that can happen, then that changes everything.
Wow, that does. It's the first I'm hearing it. So is
Melanie,
that it or is that can do?
I'm sorry.
Is that a definite can do?
No, this is the first time I heard it when, I don't know
It's
if
for
Ray
some
or the
other
mayor
too.
mentioned it.
So Mayor, is that correct? We have that option?
I don't know. I think that that's something that we'd have to get the answer from KCI and Morris and Ritchie to tell us, but that was my assumption all along, was that as the infrastructure, there's going to be a connection. I don't think all the water's coming from, I think the well, the water tower is for storage and for pressure. Is that correct in my thinking? Maybe I'm off base here. So you're going to, I would think that the source of water coming in, if we close the loop, we're going to have water coming in from the Redner side as well as the well side. Ryan, help us here. Tell me something. I don't know.
Lige, I need you to chime in here. I don't know the answer to this off the top of my head. Are we when we say the Redner side, can you give me a road name?
Whitehall side, Whitehall Road.
Okay.
There's a water line that runs along 213 going south, past in front of Redner's and all that development, and it stops right at the end there, in front of that tavern. What's his name's tavern?
Walt's Tavern.
Yeah, Walt's Tavern. I think that's stubbed off there. But I don't know how big a line it is. I don't know if it's more than an 8-inch line or not. I don't know.
So Lige, have we looked into that yet, or do we need to look into that before we make an official answer here?
The town system is all looped. Right now, the South Fields is the Holly Hall pressure zone, and it gets water from the Grace Hill zone. And in future, like after we confirmed that we can put the South Field in the town zone to reduce the water tower height, it'll still get the water from the Holly Hall zone. So it's all like all the systems, they're looped together. And to answer the question, the water tower is not only getting the water from the well 4, and potentially it can get the water from well 3 as well.
And
So
I
that's
guess,
doable.
Rob, I hate to do this. It's Ray Jackson. I've got to drop off now, if
Yep.
that's okay.
that's fine, Ray. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. The one comment that I would make, I know that when that development, the commercial development was built between Whitehall and going to Frenchtown Road, I would certainly, and I would certainly hope that we would have put enough of capacity in a line to service the Southfields project, because at that time, that was after 2002 when that land was annexed. So I would certainly have thought that we would have done our planning, our due diligence to put a large enough water line in place to service 4,000 townhouses.
Mayor, when that came in, there was always a limit to the water in that area until a tower was built. If you recall, when the Crowley farm first came in with some development, they had to set aside a space for a tower because there wasn't any storage or pressure, I think, or not enough for additional development beyond the shopping center.
So the issue is not enough water, or a combination of everything?
It was a combination, but we
Okay.
definitely needed a tower down there. The capacity, I'd have to double check, but that was back when Bruce had the property and he had come in with some residential development of his own that he was considering.
Okay. Well, thank you, Gene. Yeah, I think that well, listen, I'm gonna take a 2-minute break if I could. And I'll let everyone discuss here along themselves while I take a 2-minute break.
All righty. Sounds like a good idea.
The size of the water main along the Whitehall Road, they're 12-inch and 10-inch. So it's from the Route 40 to the Whitehall Road.
The
Thank
Legy, the well number 1R and 2R supply most of the water. That they're only permitted for 100,000 a day for those two wells.
That's right.
Not 100,000 gallons for each one, but for permitted for one or the other. So you only have 100,000 gallons a day coming from those either 1R or 2R. So
Right,
you don't
that's
have
a
a lot
like
of water
combined
costs.
allocation.
And of course, the water plant, they have that interconnect there at Whitehall Road that they can pump some water over there too. But I'm not sure how that affects the pressure and hydraulics when they do that, if it's any extensive amount of water. So that's the reason well number 4 was conceived and constructed, because that would be the water source primarily for Bruce's PUD of 2,500 ohms that he had initially envisioned to be built there, which never got off the ground. So that's why well number 4 is there. So that's your 500,000 gallons a day, which would be sufficient water for Southfields.
Okay, well, very good. Do we have any other questions or comments at this point in regards to this? We can continue to address them tonight at the 6 o'clock meeting, but is there any specific questions, which is great to have Ryan and Ouija on the phone with us. So we also have all the staff on board.
I
Anything?
don't have anything to add other than the fact that I still respect Chip. I didn't want to put him on the spot, but certainly, you know, as a board, we need to respect the planning board. And I think they have given us some information. And even though Ray's not here, I think we've been provided a lot of information in order for us to make a decision tonight on the project going forward.
And I would, the last comment I'll make is I recognize we received emails from everyone at town staff with their position on waiving the hookup fees. And when I say using the word waiving the hookup fees after May of 2022. And I do agree with, I do agree with all those comments that we saw from each member of staff. I also want to say that this is, it's related, but it's unrelated, that I am asking for this waiver, which hopefully the board will be able to give me a favorable vote tonight when I ask for that. But I am going to ask for that tonight, and we'll put this thing to bed, and then we'll be able to move forward one way or the other. And if the board supports me, great. If the board doesn't, that's great also. And we'll make do with whatever we have to do. And,
yeah, we'll give you an intelligent decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I ask for those emails? Because I don't know what's happened on my end.
One of the comment here.
I've not even seen, Louis, I've not even seen the recommendation from you.
I did send out a recommendation. I sent it out and said that we had engaged a GHD, engineering firm, to analyze an update to the wastewater treatment plant was within the realm of $20 million. And if in order for us to make those improvements in the future, we're going to incrementally have to increase our revenue under major facilities in order to build up a reserve. Otherwise, you're going to have to use sewer money to pay the debt service, and that means a big raise in the rate. And I don't know, and I think the mayor's philosophy is that if we get enough commercial development, it'll help offset that cost, but I don't know if it will or not. And I can't recommend that you waive anything, because we already waived 2.8 million for Bruce, and this will add another, I don't know, 12 million or whatever to that. And
it's not. Hey, listen, Lewis,
I like the money. I want the money in that. We'll use what we have up there pretty quick.
I want to stress, it's not, there was an email that went around, it was over 800 and something units. This is for 300. DR Horton is building 300 units. So if you take the 15,000 per unit, it's 4.5 million additional dollars this waiver would be. We had discussions the other night about whether or not I mean, there was even some good comments, buy one, get one free. I kind of analyzed that a little bit, and we would be losing money if we did that. I think I'm going to propose that we just do this one DR Horton and we're done. We're done. The 10 or 12 or 15 million more dollars that we're going to be getting in major facility fees for the rest of the project is going to be more than enough to handle all the future things that we're doing. The purpose of this special taxing district also, and when you take a major facility fee, I was always felt that when you asked a resident to hook in and you take their money, that money is going to be used for that part of the system around them. This special taxing district is paying for all the infrastructure. The residents are paying for it. If we decide that we want to move forward and have the residents pay that extra $15,000 per household during this time, the developer's not paying for that. It's going to go right back to the resident that's here. It's going to go right back into that special taxing district. And now that number is going to go up a little bit higher to those people that live there. So it's either waive it now or make them pay more later when it comes to the resident side. But listen, I'm tired of preaching. I'm tired of preaching. But any specific comments for the group right now?
I'd like to say one thing. I'm going to support or ask the board to approve KCI's proposal to begin the design process. Otherwise, it's put back again. So tonight I was asking for a formal approval so I can get a hold of Leasy and Ryan, tell them to go ahead with all this design work. We need to get that started.
I'm okay with that personally. I think we need to be moving forward with it. I don't know if I actually saw the proposal. Maybe you could send that out to the whole board.
Certainly. Also,
right.
I guess the GTA, the geotechnical people, they want to do the boring and things in Hatchery Park. So I guess the board wants that to occur too. So asking for that approval tonight also.
I would say that I'm okay with them doing the test holes, but at the end of the day, I want to see what it's going to look like when it's done. If it will enhance that park, I'm all for it. But if it's going to make it to where it's unusable and we got beautiful flowers, but you can't use it, then I'm not in favor of it. It's pretty clear. But I think that I heard him say something about boardwalks going through the center of those areas for observation. That would be kind of neat. Be something that no other town has.
I would recommend that if we allow the use of public land to meet their wetlands mitigation requirement, that we get something back, such as an improved trail system in that end of the park.
I like that. I like your thinking there.
I think Commissioner Massimiano will support that. Because he likes to hike out there.
I do.
All right. Anyone else? All right.
Thank you. I think it's been a great workshop.
I think so too. And thank you, guys.